Hello, I'm going to try and make this quick because it's pretty late, but I thought it might be time to talk a little bit about my MS diagnosis story and my adventures with MS as I'm about to embark on a new one. And I thought it might be worth taking people along on that. I know I have had questions about all the different therapies that people have done, what their experiences have been. So I thought I'd just give a quick overview of mine. My diagnosis story was actually pretty quick. A lot of people I know run into a lot of problems where it takes a really long time to get diagnosed. I had sort of an interesting experience in that my GP was actually married to a neurologist, and so I think it occurred to her pretty quickly that it could be MS. And so I first presented with optic neuritis. I worked at a computer and I thought it was eye strain. I worked really long hours, so I just kind of assumed it was that, and I did go and talked to my eye doctor. I was having blurry vision in one of my eyes. It wasn't even blurry. It was like, when you look through a windshield and it's all fogged up, it was kind of like that. And it was causing me a lot of eye strain and eye pain too, because my eyes weren't able to focus at the same distance. So like one was working pretty well and the other one absolutely wasn't. Plus optic neuritis can be quite painful. I was having pain when I looked to either side. I had taken some time off and I went to the eye doctor. I was having I was worried, of course. My vision is kind of important to me. So I went to my eye doctor and he was like, no, you need to see a doctor. So I went to my GP and we talked about it. She handed me a prescription note that said, she's like, I think you need an MRI. We need to look at some things. And she didn't give me any kind of breakdown or like what she was thinking or anything like that. She handed me a prescription that said, MRI, rule out MS brain tumor. And I was like, what? And by then she was gone. She was gone. That's what I had to go on. That was amazing. I was terrified. And I talked to people and everyone was like, that's ridiculous. Like, that is absolutely patently ridiculous. That's not, you don't have any of those things. You don't have anything to worry about. And I was really worried. And it didn't actually help to be told that that was ridiculous. And because it really was a possibility. And as it turned out, it was what I had. But it was frustrating, because I was really scared and people were just kind of, they were trying to be supportive. Like, don't worry about it till you know, which of course makes sense. But also, if you're on this journey, it's very hard and it's scary as hell. And you're allowed to be scared. You're allowed to be worried. So this was 2009, I think. So the MRI came back and I had, as I recall, it was one lesion right sort of in the center of my brain, the corpus callosum, if I remember correctly. My doctor said, it's a lesion of some sort. We don't know exactly what it's related to. It's not a tumor. If you had a tumor, you'd be dead if that was there. And I was like, oh, good. So she referred me to her husband, who was the neurologist, and I did. He had me do a lumbar puncture, and I went and saw a neuro-ophthalmologist. And the lumbar puncture, as I'm sure you'll hear, they're not fun. It's painful. It's scary, mostly. For me, it wasn't super painful to get, but my God, when they tell you don't do anything after the lumbar puncture, I had low pressure headaches after. So if you move around, which I did, I decided to go grocery shopping after because I'm an idiot. If you move around a lot, you can get basically leakage of your spinal fluid out of the hole that they put in your, in the coating. So what happens is then your brain is, it doesn't have as much to float in and you're kind of bumping it. And it was legitimately the worst headache I've ever had in my life. And I get migraines and it was awful. It made me vomit. It was very, very, very bad. So when they tell you rest, lie down and do not get up for a very long time, let yourself heal. Let that seal up, because it is hugely uncomfortable if you get that low pressure headache. So that would be my recommendation if you're going through that. So yeah, so I had a lumbar puncture and I went to the neuro-ophthalmologist and I had some tests done there. And I was incredibly sick from the low pressure headaches when I went to the neuro-ophthalmologist, and he was doing like field of vision tests and things like that. So got the results. My neurologist said, it's not conclusive. You have a lesion. You clearly have optic neuritis, but you also I was having like sinus issues at the time. I constantly growing up had sinus issues. So it was like sinusitis. It could have been the cause of the optic neuritis. So it was really hard to know what the issue was necessarily. I had oligoclonal bands in the puncture, which is what they look for. But I guess like maybe the numbers weren't as high as he was looking for. So conservatively, he was saying like, I don't know if you have MS. I think we can probably wait and see what happens, And I didn't like that answer because I like to know things. I think everyone does. And I know a lot of people have those very long diagnosis timeframes. And that's really scary, not to know that there's something wrong with you, but you don't know exactly what it is. I was having a lot of like worries about my vision, if I was going to lose it, if it was going to come back. It did come back, and I was able to work with like blue light glasses and a lot of rests and stuff. But it was really scary. So I got a second opinion at an MS center near me. And the doctor there was like, oh, absolutely, this is MS, 100%. We should get you on medications and, etc. And it was pretty quick. It was like less than a year between the time I had the optic neuritis and the time that I was diagnosed. I went on, I believe it was Avonex. It was a once a week injection, intramuscular injection. And I didn't have a lot of problems with that. I mean, it wasn't fun, but I didn't have a huge amount of problem with it to begin with. I had a partner at the time who was able to do the shots. That was a huge help because it was kind of anxiety inducing to do them myself, even though like I have some medical training. I worked with animals for a long time. I did like animal care, veterinary technician stuff. So I was used to giving injections, but not to myself. And that was a little different. Didn't love it. Because sometimes it was really uncomfortable. I really didn't have bad reactions to the shots. I did have flu-like symptoms. I would take medication at the same time, like ibuprofen. At the same time I gave myself the shot. And then that night was usually pretty bad, but I basically slept through it. And then I had, I do it on a Friday night, and then by like midday Saturday, I was basically feeling fine. But the shots started giving me anxiety. I had to do them myself after a while because my partner and I split. And it just got to the point where it didn't seem worth it. Like my symptoms had been so minimal. I mean, I was so worried about them to begin with, but then I wasn't really having any additional symptoms. It wasn't really clear how I was doing. I was getting MRIs every year, and I never had any active lesions. I had lesions, but they were never active. And so with having just the one incident, having had like sinusitis at the same time, I think I sort of began to wonder, like, do I even have MS? Did he jump the gun? Something like that. And then Gilenya came out, which is a pill, and I started on that. And it has the potential for PML, which is the horrible like brain virus that can really cause a lot of damage. And it also has like heart rate. It can really slow your heart rate. You have to take the first pill in the office. And I don't remember when I switched over to that. I think it was a few years. So I think I was on Copaxone for a few years, then Gilenya. I really liked Gilenya, but they didn't like Gilenya. I think the risk was really high with it for them. It was higher than they were comfortable with, the office in general. So My MRIs were stable. I was not seeing any active lesions. They switched me to Tecfidera, which I responded to very poorly. So they were like, give it some time. My doctor was like, I understand you're not doing well with it. I had horrific intestinal issues with it. Constant. Really bad, months and months and months. I think I was on it for 6 months. I had to go out of the country for work, and I was on Tecfidera there. And I got heat exhaustion while I was away. I got really, really sick. And then I went off the Tecfidera because I was already having dehydration issues, and it really wasn't helping. So I went off it. And then when I got back, I talked to my doctor about it, and he was like, well, if like the heat exhaustion did not cause you to have an exacerbation, like maybe you can just go off medications for now and we'll monitor. So that's what we decided to do. I think I'd been on medications for about 5 years at that point. So I was no medications at that point. So I was, I was just sailing along. I was still seeing him, but not as consistently. And then I think I had to cancel an appointment or something, and then I didn't see him for some time. So this was probably like 2015 or so. And then I had been away for a few years. I think I had been out of his office for a few years. And then in 2019, I had a really bad time. I can't say if it's a relapse or not, but I had such intense exhaustion that everything felt heavy. My limbs felt really heavy. I had a really hard time getting anywhere or doing anything. I was working. I was able to get to work and do that, but pretty much nothing else existed for me in my life. I had to sleep basically all the time. I would go to the grocery store and I'd lean on the cart the whole time. Didn't have balance issues, nothing like that, but just absolute flat out exhaustion. And it was really bad. And I tried to contact my doctor's office, and they were like, oh, well, you have to be a new, you have to come in as a new patient because you haven't been here in over a year. And I had seen another doctor at that office previously, and I knew that she had moved to another office. So I was trying to get my records transferred so that I could maybe see her a little bit sooner, because my previous doctor had been he was really well known and he was well respected, and it just meant that it was really hard to get to see him. And I wanted to see someone soon because I was having so many difficulties. And I could not get those records transferred. I couldn't, I'd call them and I'd be like, hey, can you send the records over? And then I'd call the next office and I'd be like, hey, did you get the records? And they would say no. And so I'd call back, and I was so exhausted at this point that I couldn't follow up on it constantly. I don't know. It was brutal. It never happened. I could never get those records transferred. It just never happened. So I fought through it, and I felt a little bit better. I got a little bit better. And so I was like, well, whatever, I'll figure it out someday. And then not too long after that, obviously, COVID hit. That was rough. And I remember there was a point where I had a numb spot on the side of my foot for a couple months. That was just, I was like, yeah, no, that's probably the MS. And I think I may have tried to get my records transferred at that point too. Turned out the doctor that I was trying to see, A, I couldn't get the records transferred. B, that doctor had left and gone to another office. And so I was like, what is even the point of this? I just had the worst time. So this was years and years and years. So, in the meantime, I had issues with fatigue, insane fatigue. So it comes and goes, sometimes it's just absolutely flattening. Sometimes it's very heavy. Sometimes it's just exhaustion. It doesn't usually affect my balance, except that my gait gets sort of stiff because I'm just so tired and my legs feel so heavy. It's kind of hard to describe. It's very strange. Anyway, so basically, I couldn't really point to it and say, this is definitely MS. I was worried about, clinical depression. I was worried about my job because I was so exhausted. I was having a hard time working properly, concentrating at work, all of that. I was having cognitive issues, like a lot of brain fog with it. With COVID around, as far as I know, I've never had COVID. I mask pretty broadly, just in crowds. I suspect that I have had it, but I've never tested positive for it. So I don't know. But there was also the chance that like some of that fatigue could have been COVID. It was just really uncertain. I was trying to treat things. I'm overweight. I was worried about depression. My GP was like, you need to exercise more. Everyone says you should exercise more, which makes me furious because like I'm exhausted. This is the problem. I need some help with the exhaustion so that I can then exercise more. They never like that answer. They're like, no, you just have to do it. I always appreciated when my neurologist, who was quite a bit older, but he was like, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I go swimming, and if I can do it, anyone can do it. And like, buddy, you don't have MS. So like, whatever. Anyway, that was frustrating. So very long story short, I finally just cut, like my GP referred me to a new neurologist, and I just never got my records transferred. We're starting from scratch. And the reality is that my symptoms were so vague, even though they were bad, right? Like the fatigue was really bad. It was affecting my quality of life and my ability to do my job, and it was very concerning. But it was never entirely clear what it was. And people have asked me, kind of throughout, because my course of my disease has been so mild, they were like, are you sure? Are you sure you have MS? Like maybe, like, did they misdiagnose you? Is that possible? And like, sure, anything's possible. So I went and saw this new neurologist this year, just recently. And we did another MRI. And it was pretty conclusive. So I don't have massive amounts of lesions, but I do have active lesions. And it's kind of a relief that I haven't been thinking that I've been living with this disease all this time, and then I haven't. And to know that there's maybe some sort of recourse for, I don't know if there's recourse for the fatigue, but at least I do know what I'm dealing with, and I have someone working with me, and I can hopefully get somewhere with it. Symptoms now are, again, the fatigue, the exhaustion, the overwhelming like heaviness in my limbs. Like it slows me down so much. I walk every single day. I try to walk 10,000 steps. It doesn't happen, but like I can usually hit 7,000 or 8,000 on a good day. And I can usually hit 5,000 on a not so good day. I went to an event recently and brought a cane for the first time. And I didn't use it, and I feel very strange having a mobility aid. I don't really have balance issues. I have exhaustion issues. So it's very hard for me to know, like, is this going to help? How is it going to help? Am I just, am I trying to make something invisible visible? It's not really my goal. I'm not trying to get sympathy from it. I'm literally just trying to not be so exhausted. And I do get unsteady. I say I don't have balance issues, but I guess maybe it's weakness. I don't know exactly, but in the heat especially, I start feeling very weak, and that makes me sort of wobbly. It doesn't feel the same necessarily as like a balance issue. It's more weakness, I think. And so that's why I brought it, in case I felt very weak in the heat. It was a very, very hot period of the summer. And I didn't really use it, but it was good to have it. And I think I'll probably be taking that out more when when I know I'm going to be walking for a while. So I have confirmation. Yes, I really do have MS. Unfortunately, most of what I have isn't like an exacerbation. It's not something that they can treat me for. My doctor mentioned that there were medications they can give you for fatigue, but that the side effects tend to be really bad, and she recommends exercise. I think because I'm fat, doctors assume that I'm not doing things, you know, I'm not moving, I'm not taking care of myself. I basically eat whole foods, plant-based or like vegetarian 90% of the time. I'm vegetarian. I've been vegetarian since 2012. But yeah, I think they seem to assume that like I'm not taking care of myself, or like I'm not trying to move around, I'm not trying to be active, I'm not eating well, I'm not taking care of myself. And it's very frustrating because actually I am. I'm doing all the things that I understand are the best thing for me to do to the best of my ability, understanding that I have extreme exhaustion issues and my priority has to be making the money to pay them. And so I need to be able to work, not fall asleep. So that's a thing. My symptoms right now are the fatigue. I've had it for probably about 3 weeks now, very, very badly. I was talking to a friend of mine because I was like, I don't, it seems to be like cyclical. And he was like, it seems worse around changes of the seasons, So I seem to get like a month or so of just extreme fatigue around the change of the seasons. It's hard to know when I'm not right in it, to keep track of exactly when it started. But this is like the second or third week that I've been extremely, extremely exhausted, and cognitive, had a lot of cognitive fog and inability to concentrate, that sort of thing. And otherwise, like I had a numb patch on my leg, like the outside of my leg on my calf. And I could sort of feel it, but it's very, very reduced sensation. That started to come back a little bit. It's been, again, I think that was like a month or two. When I had the numb spot on the side of my foot, it was several months. That was closer to like 2019. So my symptoms seem to be very like imprecise. Like I can't point to them and say like, this is definitely MS, but I'm pretty sure the fatigue is MS. And I'm pretty sure it's been increasing over time. And so I've been losing a lot of energy and not realizing it. I think I used to be much more capable of doing things. For a long time, I've known like I can't plan more than one event on a given weekend, because I have to have a day to recover, like a full day to just recover from whatever I've done over the week. And that's when things are really good. Like right now, yeah, it's much harder. Like there's really no recovery happening for me right now. Like it's not like I can't do things. I can do some things as long as they're not involving like a lot of walking, a lot of exercise, a lot of stairs. I can't even imagine. I can go places, I can talk to people, I can hang out. I can't do anything like crazy, cognitively challenging either, because that's very difficult for me right now. Mostly like from a focus standpoint, I'm having a really hard time maintaining focus. But as you can see, like mostly I can find words that I need, things like that. So it's 100% invisible, but it's also extremely difficult. So anyway, my doctor, the good thing is now that I have a neurologist, she's seen active lesions. They're small. They're not, huge or hugely numerous. There are, I think, 2 of them right now, 2 or 3. I can't remember. And so she's recommended that I go back on disease-modifying drugs, which I would have gone back on in 2019 quite happily if I'd been able to get a hold of somebody, because I was definitely starting to have symptoms. Now, obviously the ideal time to have them, to modify your disease, is before you start having symptoms like that. But I mean, the second best time is now. So now is what I'm doing. I'm going to be starting on Ocrevus next week. I'm thinking I will make a video of that just for people who are curious about that. So I will start with half dose infusion next week, then 2 weeks from there, another half dose, and then it's every 6 months after that. I've had several rounds of blood work, immunity, making sure that I have all my vaccinations and I'm up to date on everything that I need to be up to date on. I got a tetanus shot, tetanus diphtheria. I got titers for my MMR. I've got, they checked me for TB, and my neurologist did several tests for conditions that can mimic MS. So things like Sjogren's, and I'm trying to think of other things. I don't remember what they were, but she did several tests to make sure that it is in fact MS, ruling out other items. I think NMO is one of them, if I can remember that correctly. It's another, like it's an optic issue that mimics MS. It also results in lesions. She tested for that. Also been tested for things like hepatitis and things like that, which can be, like if you have them going on disease-modifying drugs, like Ocrevus suppresses the immune system, as most of them do, but it suppresses, I believe, B cells specifically, and so it will reduce my immunity, and it could allow things to crop up, that are dormant in my system if I have them. So we had to test for all those things. So I've got all my results back. I have, my vaccines are a month behind me. You can't get vaccinated right around the time that you get Ocrevus because of the immune suppressant qualities. So obviously there are risks. I am very willing to just do everything that I can to try and minimize future disability. I would rather not have to be forced out of working anytime soon. I would like to be able to work for a little bit longer so that I can, save for retirement and not have to worry so much about it. I'm lucky because my job is really understanding about the whole thing. But I am really worried about the cognitive and exhaustion aspects that I've been running into because they have really affected me pretty badly. Ocrevus isn't going to help with that, or it's unlikely to. It's not meant for that. It's a disease-modifying drug. It's supposed to help reduce relapses going forward to nothing, hopefully. So I should not have any relapses. And to hopefully reduce increases in disability. So I still expect to have exhaustion here, like the waves of exhaustion that I've had coming and going. But the thing is too, once I understand where I am with the Ocrevus, I can start talking to my doctor about other potential treatments for things like this fatigue, my weakness, where to go from here, what can we do to help improve my quality of life, and the Ocrevus is the first step there. So it's been 14 years. I spent about 5 of that on disease-modifying drugs. I was about 5 years without, I guess closer to 10 years without a neurologist because I couldn't get my records transferred. But I'm feeling really good that I'm back in care, under the care of someone, and it's good to have it confirmed that what I thought I was dealing with is in fact what I'm dealing with, because and it would have been fine if it wasn't. It doesn't change where I'm at or like what my symptoms are, but it's just it's good to know it's not all in my head. So much of MS symptoms are so broad and so generalized, it's very hard to know where it's coming from. Is it MS? Is it something else? Is it depression? Is it, is it just this is the fatigue that every person deals with, and I'm just a big wimp, which is something that I was wondering about for quite a while. You know, like when I was going through these ups and downs, I was like, am I just not handling this the way that other people handle it? Like, am I just really being very wimpy about it? But no, this is real. And it does affect quality of life, and it is really challenging. And, yeah, so it's real, and that's good to know because, yeah, it was sort of like, yeah, I just wasn't sure. I was kind of gaslighting myself, I think, sometimes, and being like, you're just being ridiculous. Just get over it, you know? I've had really bad insomnia too, and that incredibly doesn't help. You know, I know sleep is like my number one thing that I need to get, and I worked really hard to get, you know, a better bedtime routine and all of that. Like, I really have put a lot of time and effort into improving my overall health, sleep, stress, not exposing myself to illness. I mask pretty regularly when I go out in public. All of that stuff. I'm trying so hard, you know, to take care of myself and make sure that I'm doing the best for me. And the one thing that was really missing was a neurologist. And so now I have that support, and I'm very excited, and I'm looking forward to starting Ocrevus. So this has been a million years. If you got to the end, thank you. And I hope it helped. It's just, you know, one example of many. Everyone's journey is different. You know, my course of my disease has always been very mild, and I've been very lucky. But even mild, it's very difficult. The fatigue is unbelievable, and I'm really struggling with it. And that's been hard to quantify and explain to people, and really even to myself, like to justify how exhausted I am to myself, you know. So anyway, I'm glad to be where I am. I'll do another video when I get the Ocrevus and just let people know what my experience is of that. But yeah, thanks. I really hope this helps. And whether you've just been diagnosed, whether you've had it a long time, or whether you're just curious and you're coming across it, I'm really glad you stopped by. So thanks so much. Talk to you later.